This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, Ira. Good morning, sir. How are you doing, my man? You doing all right?
You know what? I'm doing good, Big O, but I got to be honest. Now that I know our schedule here with the twice-a-week Acura Pembroke Pines reports and on a Wednesday Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint, I always worry that I'm going to be coming off a loss or something horrible because we know that Orlando Alzugaray loves nothing more than to dig his fangs in after the worst of times. So I'm sitting there at that game last night, and I'm going, please no, please don't lose to the depleted league worst Detroit Pistons. And only when Tyler Hero hit that shot, and only when Max Strus hit a shot do I go, okay, I think I could survive a Christmas Eve with Orlando. But man, Big O, was that harrowing.
It was, but they got it done, which is all that matters to me. And again, one of the things you and I talked about, the development and watching Gabe Vincent, watching Max Strus, Yurtseven pick up 12 rebounds yesterday, especially with the Deadman injury.
Yeah,
you really are going to need this young man who all of a sudden has become a rebounding machine. So that's a really good thing. To me, that's the sweet part about that victory is that there were a lot of young guys involved, and they're the reasons why you won this game. Not the sole reason, because we know that Hero was just an absolute hero yesterday. I mean, he was just freaking awesome.
yes.
I mean, this kid was out for a few games, and he has shown zero rust. I mean, he has come off that the injured thing and just taken up.
Well,
was it injured or COVID? What was it?
And no, speaking about that, is I think the rest helped him. You know what? He had the bruised quad, and he missed the three games there after he got injured at the start of the Heat's last road trip. But that time off helped him. I think it energized him. I think we now know who Tyler Hero is and what he is. He's a sixth man because what he does suits that role so much better of, okay, we're dying here. We need help. And then all of a sudden you could wind up with someone like Tyler steps into that big shot. That's why they're starting Gabe Vincent. That's why they're starting Max Strus. It would have been so easy these last two games, the victory over the Pacers, the blowout, last night's victory over the Pistons, for Erik Spoelstra, literally just say, here's my five best remaining guys, let's start them. Instead, he thought that out. And Tyler, as a sixth man, has been godsend this year. He's done that so many times, and he has the big, whatever you want to call him, to step up and make that kind of shot.
Yeah, no, he definitely has him, man, because he is as fearless as it gets. But on the flip side, if you want me to bitch and complain,
I know where you're going because there's always a half-empty Orlando Alzugaray segment.
I mean, Jesus Christ, dude, let's whip out the milk cartons. I mean, where the hell is Duncan Robinson? I mean, come on, what are you doing? What the hell's going on last night? And you had that good game the other night, and you thought, okay, maybe this will ignite him. And it's the same thing the whole half season so far. The few good games are just aberrations. The norm is what we saw last night. What the hell's going on?
And so much of it, Big O, has been masked by the play of Max Strus. That instead of thinking who's not there, you're seeing this guy make all the three-pointers and big shots, so you forget about it. Honestly, I wrote my story. I did not have the word Duncan Robinson in it. And I said, no, that's not fair. I have to let the readers know that they won despite Duncan Robinson being horrible. Didn't make a single shot in the game. Didn't score until the third quarter when there was a technical foul on the Pistons, and he was the one who went to the foul line, only made 3 free throws for 3 points in the game. Yeah, it's interesting. Every time I talk to you, I try to downplay it because, one, I think he's a great shooter. Two, I did not disagree with the $90 million 5-year contract. It's crazy, but in the NBA, $15 million a year, that's about what you wind up paying for guys like that, for Joe Harris, for Davis Bertans, and players like that. But he's not been good enough. And I think he has to know that. And the one thing about Erik Spoelstra, and Big O, you've dealt in your decades in the game with different kind of coaches. They were the coach who publicly comes out and chastises his players. They're the coach who never complains about players. And they're the coach who in front of people says one thing, but he's thinking something else. That's who Erik Spoelstra is. Erik Spoelstra will never publicly condemn a player.
Right.
But privately, I'm sure he's crunching the numbers with his analysts there and his metrics people and going, we've got to get more from that position. We've got to get more from that player. They're treading water now, it's fine. But you know what, Big O? You and I, and even Clay on our Wednesday show, spoke about this. Eventually, the Heat's going to get to the regular starting lineup. Jimmy Butler's going to be back. Bam Adebayo's going to be back. PJ Tucker's going to be back. Markieff Morris is going to be back. Caleb Martin's going to be back, and probably even Victor Oladipo. So as much as the Heat starting lineup, the preferred starting lineup this season of Adebayo, Tucker, Butler, Robinson, and Lowry did fine, if Eric Spoelstra is going to be honest about his thing, that the best players play, that those who do the most play, you can make an argument of taking Duncan Robinson from one of the 5 starting spots to 10th man based on productivity. In other words, when do you sit back and say, it's not fair to Max Strus, it's not fair to Caleb Martin, it's not fair to Gabe Vincent that I'm asking players to do all of this, they're doing it, but I'm grandfathering in this player? I'd say about mid-season. That'll be mid-January, which is interesting, Big O, because that's also when Bam Adebayo's scheduled to come back. But yeah, I think at some point you have to be honest and just say, this isn't working. You were grandfathered in. And you know what? To the credit of Pat Riley and even Eric Spoelstra, they have sat some high-priced players over the years. They have given the minutes to the deserving. And I think they might have to think about that again.
Yeah, it's you and I are thinking along the same lines, because I was about to tell you that what has saved Duncan Robinson lately has been injuries. That because half the team is sitting on the bench injured, or out with COVID or whatever, you've got your ass is saved right now.
Yes.
But when everybody comes back,
absolutely,
and if you keep playing this way, he's not going to have any choice but to just put you deeper and deeper into the rotation. Because if you've got young guys like this now that are hungry and are playing, Max Strus, he shows me more as a two-way player than Duncan will ever show me as a two-way player. Caleb Martin shows me more than Duncan does as a two-way player than he'll ever show me. And so, if you're going to go in this direction, well, then if you got younger guys that are producing and hitting the shots and then helping you in other areas, well, then they're going to make you a better team all the way around. So at one point or another, you have to look at Duncan and say, Duncan, I got to run out of patience here. I don't care what we're paying you. You're not making us better. So in a way, we were talking about, the last time we talked about how, maybe KZ and UD, that one spot, maybe you have to free up one of those slots at the end of the year for a point guard just for insurance purposes. Well, for Duncan Robinson, maybe the clock is ticking now that, hey, man, either you start picking up your play or we got to start using people that are playing better than you.
And with the February 10th NBA trading deadline approaching, even if Duncan is down on his shooting, like we spoke about, his contract is still that mid area there that is tradable, that you could work into a deal. And so you say to yourself, there will always be teams who know they will never get a free agent. No one wants to go to Indiana. No one wants to go to Sacramento. No one wants to go to Memphis or New Orleans. So there might be a team that says, you know what? 2 of the last 3 years, this guy has been big time. One of the best in NBA history. We're not going to get a free agent this July. But if we can get a guy locked into 4 more seasons who is a special, special player, then maybe that's the move we make. And you know what? It's interesting. Oh, if you would have asked me 2 years ago or last year, can the Heat survive without Duncan Robinson? I would have said no. He is so unique to what they do. But I didn't see Max Strus at this level then. I do see that now. So now I think when you talk about a possible Duncan Robinson trade, it might make sense. And who knows, with the genius of Andy Ellisberg and Pat Riley and Adam Simon in the front office, maybe that's why they created this contract in the first place. Maybe they said to themselves, the problem is we got all these $30 million contracts for Bam, for Lowry, for Butler, that basically are hard to trade with that kind of money because they're essential. Then we have all these minimal contracts that get you nothing when you aggregate the salaries. But right in that sweet spot is Duncan Robinson. You might not be too far off there. I think when we get closer, look, the Heat can love someone until they fall out of love. They love Kelly Olynyk. He was what they needed. He was a godsend at that position. But then something better came along. So yeah, I think over the PA system there at Acura Pembroke Pines, you might hear them paging Duncan Robinson. Please report via trade physical anytime. So I'll be listening in the background when you show up there every Friday.
It's funny because I'm laughing because when you're talking about this, a few years back, when they signed all those journeymen, at no point did I ever believe that those contracts were tradable.
Right.
And I know that they sold that, and all you guys were riding it too. And at no, I called that complete bullshit from day one. And sure enough, it was complete bullshit. They weren't tradable.
Oh no, I
until the
disagree.
very end.
I disagree with Orlando Alzugaray, because for the contracts of James Johnson and Dion Waiters, they got a season and a half rental of Andre Iguodala.
At the end of it.
Yes, but still, I understand when the money
it wasn't tradable right away. Like
but
this
remember,
this is tradable. That's my point.
Dion had a year left. James Johnson had a year left. Sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes you have to wait. It wasn't with 4 years left. It'll be after this.
But that's my point. This is a truly tradable contract.
Yes, because
those bums were not tradable contracts until, like any big contract, when you're at the end of the contract, it's cap space all of a sudden. But that's my point. This is really the definition of a tradable contract.
I totally agree with you.
You know what I mean?
Again, it's not as much about the man, the person, what he's done, what he hasn't done. Sometimes it's about the money. Sometimes it's about the greater need for this team. But you know what goes back to the subject we've spoken about with you twice a week here with Clay Ferraro on Wednesdays. All this stuff the Heat are developing, it's making it easier to consider moves for another big piece or a different piece. Because you know what? Max Strus can flat out play. Gabe Vincent can flat out play. Omar Yurtseven can flat out rebound. He set a Miami Heat record yesterday, the first Heat rookie to ever have 4 or more consecutive games of at least 12 rebounds. Remember, we've had Ronnie Cycli here.
Cycli was a rebounding machine.
Cycli was a rebounding machine. We had Michael Beasley here. He loved to fill up the box score without getting victories. And yet it's Yurtseven who's doing this, the guy they just found off the scrap heap in the Sacramento Summer League. So it's those little moves that make it easier to consider something big. Pat Riley's going to be in a really good position at the February 10th trading deadline. But you know what, Big O? He might also be in a good place in the standings where he says, hey, I'm not going to shake up a good thing. This is working. Even if Duncan's not hitting shots, once a week he might, and once a week we might need that.
All right. Dedmon, what do we know about the injury? Then part 2 of that question is, the elevation of Yurtseven is awesome, obviously, because he has been a rebounding machine. So that's going to help out. So then the flip side is, if Dedmon is serious, if the injury is serious, then, okay, spoil us again, Miami Heat. Go find somebody else.
And you know what? And they always do, because, again, Dwayne was filling in for Bam. Bam should be back in about 3 weeks. I mean, he's doing his cardio. He's obviously staying in shape. He'll always be in shape. So you might just be buying some time, playing teams without great centers. You got the Magic coming up. It's not like they have Vucevic anymore. You have the shorthanded Wizards look like they'll be without Bradley Beal to end this 4-game homestand. Then you go to San Antonio, again, an outside shooting big man in Jacob Poeltl, although a great rebounder there. You go to Houston, yes, Christian Wood, little unders. You can buy time is what I'm saying. You can mix and match. You won't have the center. What you will have is this, Big O. You'll have the rebounding from Omar Yurtseven. You'll have the undersized athletic play from KZ Okpala, who's not terrible anymore.
No, I know.
And you will have the moments which I did not believe still existed. And then we saw last night from Udonis Haslem that at crunch time, he had 7 points in the third quarter. He gave you something. So look, I'm not saying any of those are my choice for starting center. They're not. I'm saying the amalgamation of those 3 will help you get by. The fact is this, Big O. If Udonis Haslem can be a contributing piece, which I was not so sure of, and I've been very honest with you about that, then you really do have 16 guys who all can provide a function. That's pretty good on a roster. You've looked at the Dolphins 53. They have some guys there who can't do something for you all the time. The Heat have 16 guys who can, and that's made a difference. And not 16 guys you just force in there. Each guy has had a moment. The KZ Okpala thing has been revelation. Look, if you're saying, is KZ Okpala starting level? No. Is KZ Okpala rotation level? No. But is KZ Okpala good enough to fill in on a moment's notice for brief stints during a game? Yeah, I'm going to give him credit. He's proven capable of that in his 3rd NBA season.
Yeah, no, he's finally showing signs of life. Okay,
showing signs of something.
Yeah, man. So it's now it's one of those things. Okay, kid. Now can you build on that? Can you build on that? Hey, look, sometimes some guys are late bloomers, man. It takes them Well, obviously the guys that they have here must be, late bloomers, right? Because they had to bounce around a little bit before they got here overall. So, sometimes it takes guys a little while to kind of get going. All right.
You
So do
find the
we
right
have,
system, right place, right mix. Absolutely, Big O.
yeah. Do we have any update on any of the guys that were sidelined?
Well, the fact that Caleb Martin was back in the game means he's not contagious, or else the Heat are playing loose and free with the rules. So there's a second part to the testing when you were symptomatic. There's a heart test. Remember, there's some concerns about heart ailments involved with this and conditioning. I think even though it's the Christmas break and the Heat are off, he'll get his cardio in. I think he could come back as soon as Sunday. But again, he might not have to because they're playing the Magic. You might not have to force things. Jimmy Butler could have come back yesterday. But again, like I've said, you sort of look at the opponent and saying, hey, I can get by against the Detroit Pistons without Jimmy Butler. So I think Jimmy might look at Orlando and go the same thing because they have that hellacious 7-game road trip coming up after. Bam, we know about mid-January. He seems to be on course. That's the good news. Markeith's an unknown. I mean, Markeith's almost at the point where you wonder if he should have legal counsel, because what Nikola Jokic did to him to keep him out since November 8th is more than just a basketball-related injury. I don't know. He shoots before games, but there's been no sign of him taking contact. Can he physically take contact? Is contact safe for him? So to me, that's the greatest unknown.
What is it? What is his injury? What are
whiplash. He has whiplash.
So, but does he have vertigo or something? Whiplash?
Whiplash is a neck injury of a harsh forward and then backwards motion with your neck. And if you go to WebMD or ClevelandClinic.com or MayoClinic.com, they will tell you in an auto accident, it can be 3 months until you regain full mobility in your neck. So he literally might have been hit by the car that is called Nikola Jokic, and it's going to be that long. So you have that going on. Of course, Victor Oladipo, we don't know. Well, Victor Oladipo, I don't know if he's an NBA player this season or not. So there's so many question marks that could lift the Heat from, like we talked about all the time in our show, competitor to contender. But you know what, Big O, the bodies are in house. The Heat don't have to, at February 10th, go to the trading deadline and go, we've got to do something. They don't have to make the move like they did for Jay Crowder and Andre Iguodala 2 years ago. They don't have to work with any sort of desperation like they did with the Olynyk trade last season. If they get Victor Oladipo, Markieff Morris, and everyone else back, they're going to get more from their own roster inside than any team likely will get at the trading deadline outside of, say, a Ben Simmons.
And now that I think about it, I had whiplash. We were in high school, 49th Street. I was in the back seat of a Datsun B210, and some lady takes the light and doesn't realize that we're in front of her, and she rams right into us. I end up on the front seat where my best friend was sitting, who just passed away 2 weeks ago. And in that accident, I suffered whiplash, and I had that neck brace on for 2 months.
Yeah, it's so again.
So
look, he's not being soft. He wants to be out there. The fact that he's on the main court shooting before games, he wants to show people, one, that he's visible, that he's willing to put in the work. But sometimes, they're just
no. But I remember that it's a pain, man. It's the mobility was not there it took a while for me to really feel good. I remember that. So now I can kind of relate to what he's going
and also,
now.
Big O, we always talk about the Heat style of defense as, quote, head on a swivel. So you better be able to swivel your head in order to play the Heat defense. So that makes it even tougher. So, yeah, it's a shame. But again, him and Victor Oladipo, if they come back, the depth of talent on this roster. Stan Van Gundy spoke to Dave Hyde this week for a column. Dave did it Sun Sentinel and SunSentinel.com, and he said the same thing. They're as talented as anyone in the East when they're fully healthy. I mean, look, Brooklyn we don't know about. Maybe Kyrie comes back, plays home games, doesn't. James Harden gets in shape, doesn't. You don't know. Does Kevin Durant get burned out? They've shown they can beat the Nets. They've shown they beat the Bulls. They've shown they can beat the Bucks. They've shown they could beat the 76ers. So they simply have the ability to. And in almost all those games, they also weren't fully healthy. So we've yet to truly see the best of the Heat, because when they were rolling early, we didn't know about Max Strus. We didn't know about Gabe Vincent. We didn't know about Caleb Martin. Now we know about them all. It'll be a really interesting second half of the season. when they come back from their upcoming road trip. We will reschedule with you for 2 weeks because I ain't getting up at 5 a.m. to do no Inside the Paint show. But that's going to be a wild trip also. You're talking about starting next week, leaving Wednesday, playing in San Antonio, then Houston, then Sacramento, then Golden State, then Portland, then Phoenix, then Atlanta. And then they're almost done with any bad road trips. So you survive till early January. You're in pretty darn good shape, probably better shape than any other team schedule-wise.
I actually think right now the Heat are better than I even thought they were.
Yes, and it's
because
better
of all these young guys. They have more depth than I ever thought they ever had.
And they're better than their record. No matter what their record is, it's being held back by the road. It's being held back by the injury. So I almost don't look at the Heat record sometimes. I don't care if they're tied for fourth. It doesn't matter. I know that second half of the season, COVID permitting, can be absolutely gold for this team.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you. The Heat are better than what I thought they were, man. They easily have a shot at getting to the finals if everything goes well.
Absolutely.
They can beat anybody in the East, man. I really feel that. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat, and of course you can catch him here several times a week, twice a week with the Acura Pembroke Pines, Miami Heat, and NBA Report. And remember, on Wednesdays at 9 a.m., you can catch him with the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint show with Clay Ferraro. Ira, have a terrific weekend and continue to enjoy the holiday season. Stay safe, my friend.
And as long as the Heat didn't give me a lump of coal last night, I'm happy. Happy holidays to you and everyone. Thank you, Big O.
Got it. Be good. There you go. Ira Winderman. Duncan Robinson. He's distributing that coal.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.